Hallelujah. I think I'm getting hungry or something. I started feeling a little bit lightheaded, but I had 3 cookies for breakfast today. Oatmeal and raisin. I was in a rush. So, the message for today. Wow, that looks delicious, right? Oh man, she really wants to eat that food, and she's really happy eating that ice cream. This food must be really, really good. Look at that lady. Oh, she's happy eating that fruit. These people really like this food. And look at that guy. Oh man, he is happy eating that chicken. Right now, I'm going to ask you guys a question, right, before we move on to the next slide. Well, actually, no. One more slide. Yeah. Look at Shaggy. Oh, man, he's really eating that burger, right? He's really, really happy, right? So this food looks really good. Looks really tasty. The people that are eating this food, they sure like they're enjoying it, right? They're really enjoying this food. But how do they know that the food is good? How do these people who are eating this food know that it's good? It's not a trick question. It tastes good, right? Thank you, Sister Beth, for preaching my sermon. It tastes good, right? So the sermon today is, oh, taste and see that Yahweh is good. Taste and see that Yahweh is good. The people that were eating that food, they looked like they were enjoying it. So they tasted it, right? They tasted the food and they knew that the food was good. Now, is Yahweh good? Is Yahweh good all the time? Now, we like to say that, right? We like to say that Yahweh is good, but how do we know? Is this just something we say because other people say it? Is it something we say just because it's something good to say? How do we know that Yahweh is good? We have to taste. We have to taste to see that Yahweh is good. You can't say that some food is good if you haven't tasted it. You can't say that. Now, you may say many people like to eat this type of food, but if you haven't tasted it, you can't really testify that the food is good. If you've tasted it and you know it's good, you say, yes, I know that the food is good because I have tasted it for myself. So the title of the sermon is, oh, taste and see that Yahweh is good. This comes from Psalm 34, verse 8. It says, oh, taste and see that Yahweh is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. To know that food is good, you have to taste it. To know that Yahweh is good, you have to taste his word. David knew that Yahweh was good because David tasted Yahweh's word. David knew the second commandment. He believed it and he did it. He tasted the commandment. So what does the second commandment say? You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and to the fourth generation of those that hate me. And then verse 6, but showing steadfast love to thousands, or to the thousandth generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. David knew that loving Yahweh and keeping his commandments brings steadfast love. Yahshua said the same thing in John 14 and verse 15. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. David loved Yahweh and kept Yahweh's commandments. So Yahweh showed David his steadfast love. When David was writing that psalm, he was talking about how Yahweh rescued him from all his fears. David saw that Yahweh was good. David loved Yahweh and kept his commandments. David tasted Yahweh's word, and Yahweh delivered David from his troubles. David loved Yahweh and kept his commandments. David tasted Yahweh's word, and Yahweh delivered Goliath into David's hands. I know this seems simple, and the sermon is simple, but let us not lose how profound it is because of its simplicity. David loved Yahweh and kept his commandments. David tasted Yahweh's word, and Yahweh made David king. Yahweh had David have favor among the people. By obeying Yahweh's commandments, David was tasting Yahweh's word. Yahweh showed David steadfast love by delivering David from all his troubles, by delivering him from all his fears, by having David slay Goliath, by giving David favor among the people, by making David king over Israel, his chosen people. David saw that Yahweh was good. But for David to see that Yahweh was good, David had to taste Yahweh's word. After he tasted, then he saw that Yahweh was good. If David hadn't tasted Yahweh's word, if David hadn't loved Yahweh and kept his word, David would not have seen Yahweh's goodness. Now, there's a general goodness of Yahweh that everyone sees. Even sinners see Yahweh's goodness. Yahweh shines the sun on everyone. Yahweh gives safe traveling mercies to millions of people, even people going to commit crimes. Yahweh lets the rain fall and flowers bloom on fields of both the righteous and the wicked. That's Yahweh's general goodness that is shown to everyone. But this is not the goodness I'm talking about. I'm talking about the rich goodness of Yahweh that those who taste his word see. Yes, Yahweh is good to everyone, but not everyone is chosen to be king over Israel. Yahweh is good to everyone, but not everyone is given the ability to slay a giant like Goliath with only a sling and a stone. Yahweh is good to everyone, but not everyone is given favor among the people. Yahweh is good to everyone, but not everyone is remembered as Israel's greatest human king, that is David. Yahweh doesn't show this goodness to everyone. No. This kind of goodness is shown only to those who taste his word, only to those who obey his commandments. So let's look at some commandments and the goodness that comes from tasting these word, and that is obeying them. Now, I don't consider the 10 commandments to be the only commandments, nor do I consider the law, that is from Genesis to Deuteronomy, to be the only commandments. I consider the whole counsel of Yahweh, his principles and his proverbs, his parables and his precepts, and all the lessons we read about from reading stories about people to be his word, his teachings. They are his instructions for successful living. Because they are Yahweh's instruction for successful living, then I believe that I should obey them, because I want to be successful in Yahweh. 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 say, all scripture is given by inspiration of Elohim and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of Elohim may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. So the whole word of Yahweh is inspired by Yahweh, meaning it is good for life, for living. And then, quoting Deuteronomy, Yahshua said in Matthew 4:4, but he, that is Yahshua, answered, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Elohim. So I personally use these two verses to say that I really should obey every commandment, every principle, every proverb, every precept, every lesson in the parables, and every lesson in people's stories. So I believe in living by every word of the scriptures and not just the commandments. So let's look at some scriptures here. So now this sermon again it's very simple. So don't fall asleep because it's simple, because I think many of us, with the simple commandments or the simple proverbs, we tend to just like look over them because they're so simple. But we'll see that it's in the doing, it's in the tasting that you see Yahweh's goodness. So let's say I'm like, oh man, I have no money. I'm always broke. I work so much, but I got no money. Life is hard. Let's see what Yahweh says about this. Which commandments or teachings of Yahweh do you have to taste to see his goodness when it comes to money problems? Proverbs 12, verse 11. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. So, this verse says that those who work their land will have plenty of bread. That means plenty of food. Back in Solomon's time, most people had land and farmed their land so they could have food. Yahweh's word is eternal, and this verse still holds true today. Most people don't have farmland, but they do have jobs. Those who work hard at their jobs will have plenty of bread. That means they will have enough money to, eat well. No, so if you're short on money, are you really working your job? Are you putting in a lot of effort at your job? Is there a chance for overtime? Are you getting some of it? Are you putting in effort? Are you working your land? Are you working at least 40 hours a week? That is if you're short on cash. Maybe I'm not talking to anybody here, but some people work more than one job. If you're short on money, are you working as much as you can at your job? If you can work 8 or 10 hours a day at your job, are you doing that, or are you working only part-time? Working part-time is like only farming half your land. Now, of course, some people are married and don't need to work that many hours. But the question is, if you're lacking money to eat well and more, are you honestly working as many hours as you can? Okay. Proverbs 12, verse 11 says, whoever works his land will have plenty of bread. So taste Yahweh's word and see Yahweh's goodness. If you work your land, if you put in a lot of effort at your job, you should have enough money to eat well. You shouldn't be starving. Now, of course, we're going to move on and expand on this. But if your job isn't great, if your job doesn't pay that well, say it's only minimum wage, and if you've worked the hours all available, you still have trouble making it. This is just one example. Proverbs 12:24 tells us, the hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put to forced labor. Yahweh says that those who are diligent will rule. Well, what does diligent mean? Diligent means energized, characterized by steady, earnest, energetic effort, meaning putting it in there. A diligent worker is one who puts forth earnest effort into his or her work so that the work is done well. This work that is done well is appreciated by his or her supervisors. But I like the New Living Translation, which says, work hard and become a leader, or be lazy and become a slave. Those who put in honest effort at their jobs, those who do more than they're asked to, those who work as unto Yahweh and not as unto men, those are the people that become leaders. So, let's say your job doesn't pay well and you're having trouble earning enough money. Well, you could show diligence and you could become a leader, that is, get a promotion. It looks like the higher the pay, the less the work becomes physical and the more mental it is. So, it seems managers sometimes they look like they're just sitting doing nothing, but they're using their heads more than they're using their bodies. The people that work hard, those that show up on time at work, those that aren't complaining, they are the ones that are diligent, the ones that will rule. They become the leaders. I know this is so simple, but how many times I've heard people complain about money or their jobs, but they don't want to taste the word of Yahweh and see Yahweh's goodness. I hear people complaining a lot about not having enough money or being in debt, but you don't want to be diligent to do Yahweh's word. Yahweh says, oh, taste and see that Yahweh is good. If you don't taste, then you won't see. Yes, it's that simple. Many of Yahweh's teachings are simple, but it's in the disobedience of these simple truths that gets us in trouble. Because they're so simple, many of us dismiss them. We do this especially with the Proverbs. We give them mental assent. They sound good. It's a good thing to know. We agree with them, but we don't do them. That is faith without works. We claim to know them, but we don't do them. We take them as suggestions from Yahweh. It's a good thing to do, but not as instructions or commandments from the King of Kings. We're like those who say they believe in Yahshua, but they have no works to prove their belief. That's not belief. That belief is dead. We say we agree with the whole word of Yahweh. We read the Proverbs. We say we believe them, but our works prove otherwise. If we don't do them, it makes our faith dead. We don't really believe in them. The point I'm trying to get to is, saints, that if you don't do what Yahweh says you should do, you won't get what Yahweh says you will get. So trying to see Yahweh's goodness without tasting his word is foolishness, really. Yahweh is good all the time, so his word is good all the time. His word is profitable for instructions in righteousness, that the man or woman of Elohim may be perfect, that is, to be mature, thoroughly furnished unto, equipped to do all good works. Being perfect, that is mature, is being like Yahshua. Yahshua was equipped to do all good works, and he did them. Obeying the whole word of Yahweh will lead you to become more like Yahshua. So you have to taste his word. Now, the scripture also says, if your job is not providing enough for you to eat well, that is, have plenty of bread, then you can work hard to get a promotion. I'm just using one example. But if that's not what you want, then you could find a better job or go to school, get some training. That means you might need to go to school, to get training to do better. We want to live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahweh. So if the scripture says, we should work our land and we'll have plenty of bread, then work hard at your job and have plenty of bread. Be the best employee, or be diligent and become promoted. Now, some people have good jobs or make plenty of money, but they are disobedient with that money and therefore have no savings. We talked about this in yesterday's Bible study. Proverbs 21:20 says, "Precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it." We looked at this proverb, and I like the New Living Translation. It's simpler, and it says, the wise have wealth and luxury, but fools spend whatever they get. This verse tells us that spending all your money is not wise at all. It's foolish, and it's not how believers ought to live. In the Proverbs, you see the wise versus the foolish. These translate as believer and unbeliever. The wisdom that Solomon wrote these Proverbs with is actually Yahshua. Yahshua was speaking through Solomon. Yahshua is the wisdom of Yahweh. So if we have Yahshua within us, then we should do. If we have Yahshua within us, then we should be doing what the wise do. Spending all your money and having no savings for wealth is being disobedient with Yahweh's money. And I know this seems simple, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, I know that. But it's putting these in practice to obey all of Yahweh's word. Now, you may say, I need this or I need that. Or you may say, Jeremy, you live by yourself. You don't know what it's like, okay, to be me or to have a family and so on and so forth. But what if I told you, okay, I have to steal because you don't know the situation that I'm in. So I have to steal because you just don't understand me. Or that I have to lie because of the way that I grew up. But you most likely tell me, you're making excuses for sin, and you're explaining away your sin. It's the same thing with spending all of Yahweh's money and having no savings. You're making excuses for sin, explaining away your sin. Yahshua told us to live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahweh. And you cannot be led by the Holy Spirit and the Spirit leads you to disobeying Yahweh's word. And I hope we're getting this, because I think we tend to look at some parts of scriptures as we should really obey these, but other parts as these are suggestions and we don't really need to obey them. But Yeshua reminds us to live by every word of Yahweh. So if you truly want to save money but are struggling, then ask Yahweh. James 1 verse 5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask Yahweh, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to you. Father, I really want to obey your word in savings or in whatever area. Please show me how. You see, if you want your prayers to always be answered, here's a secret. They should be what Yahweh wants. Prayers like these are prayers that always get answered. Asking Yahweh to show you how to obey his word will always get answered. Now, this is just an example. I think the area of finances is one that in which I think believers disobey Yahweh. We are not set apart from the world in this one particular area. We look just like the world. That is, if the world is in debt, then we're in debt. If the world is living paycheck to paycheck, then so are we. We look just like the world, but we need to be set apart. And to be set apart doesn't just mean in keeping the feast days or in keeping the Sabbath days, but it's in all your life. Like worshiping Yahweh is all your life and in every single area of your life. I hope we're getting this. Or we're just like, Jeremy, your sermon is so boring. I'd rather be somewhere else. So I hope we're getting this. We need to taste Yahweh's word with our finances so that we may see his goodness, so there will be precious treasure and oil in our dwellings. And I'm not preaching a prosperity gospel here. What I'm telling you is your whole life must be in line with all of Yahweh's word. And so we should obey his whole word. Okay, let's move on. So back to the Job analogy, and this is just one example. If you know the natural skills that Yahweh has given you and you perform your skills well, you join the best of the best. And here's another Proverbs 22 verse 29. Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. So those who are skillful in their work will stand before kings. Kings are leaders of nations. Today, because we vote for them, we call them presidents. But it's the same position of leader of a nation. So what kind of people does the president invite when he wants a job done? Or what kind of people get to see the presidents? It's people like the Patriots who won the Super Bowl, the best of the best. The people who win gold medals, right? We always see them going to see the president. So this is a proof that this proverb is true, that the best among the best get to stand before kings. So the idea is, as believers, we should show forth how Yahweh gave us his best by doing our best at our jobs and in everything that we do, because we are a representation of our Father. Whenever we see a child who is well behaved, we're like, boy, your parents must have raised you well. Even if the parent isn't really that well, but because you're obeying Yahweh's word, it's a good reflection. The point of this proverb is believers should not be lazy. I mean, Yahweh hates laziness. They should be diligent at their work and aim to be among the best of the best. That is wisdom. Believers should taste and see that Yahweh is good. Now, I'm going to give some examples of tasting and seeing Yahweh's goodness. These are examples from different places, different areas in life. They're just examples. But what I'm trying to point is the principle of doing Yahweh's word to get what Yahweh says you will get. Sometimes we want to see Yahweh's goodness, but we don't want to taste his word. It's like everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. You can't get there without die. And if you really want to go to heaven, you got to die to yourself. Okay. So trying to get the result without obeying Yahweh's word is really foolishness. We should not be foolish. We should taste, and then we will see that Yahweh is good. People who've tasted, Yahweh's word and seen His good, you can see it in their eyes because it's a personal testimony. I'm not just saying, well, I heard of somebody or of a brother who Yahweh did this for that person. I can tell you with a personal testimony because I tasted Yahweh's word, and I can tell you for myself that Yahweh is good. And I can see it, that Yahweh is good. So we're going to go through some scriptures here and see Yahweh's goodness. Plus, many of us know the word of Yahweh, but we don't practice it. Maybe we focus on the Sabbath days, the 10 Commandments, eating, not eating dirty, eating the right food, and keeping the feast days. Then we think because we're following these, then we're following what's written in the Old Testament. Then we're following the whole Bible. But that's not correct, especially when it comes to the Proverbs. And I know I'm hitting on this because it's something that people take as suggestions. I think many of us know them in our minds, and we can quote them, but we don't practice them. Yahshua emphasized that it is in the doing of the will of the Father that one gets rewarded. Matthew 7:21 says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." Then Luke 6:46 says, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say?" It's in the doing of His word that you get to see Yahweh work. James 1:22, I think we went through this downstairs. "But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourself." It's in the doing, the tasting of the word that you will see Yahweh's goodness. And then Mark 3:35 says, "For whoever does the will of my Father, of Yahweh, he is my brother and sister and mother." So Yeshua is saying you've got to do the word. Let's just not just be people who have mental assent to the word and then not do it. Then we wonder why our life is. If you want that abundant life that Yeshua promised, you have to do the work. And I hope we're getting this, because if 1 year from today we're still in the same spot, then I know you weren't paying attention and you were thinking about something else. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, now we're going to look at some verses, and I'm going to ask you questions about what the tasting is and what the goodness of Yahweh is, right? We know that Yahweh is good, right? All the time. His word is good. Okay, so Proverbs 16 verse 3. "Commit your works to Yahweh and your plans will be established." What is the tasting of Yahweh's word? Committing your works to Yahweh, right? And what is the goodness you will see? Your plans will be established, right? So if you're somebody who plans what you do just on your own thinking, I want to do this and I will go here and do that, but then things don't follow through, right? It's because you're not tasting His word. You're not committing your works to Yahweh, and so your plans are not being established. Yahweh has a will, and He is sovereign, meaning everything must bow down to Him. So what is the tasting? Again, committing your works to Yahweh. And then what is the goodness you will see? Okay, I hope we get this, because if people say, let's just move on. Okay, Proverbs 13 verse 5. It's like this one, but I really want to see people really get it. Okay, commit your way to Yahweh, trust in Him, and He will act. What is the tasting of Yahweh's word?
Commitment.
Say it again. And trust in Him, right? So commit your way to Yahweh and trust in Him. That means if things don't go as you hoped, you still gotta trust. You're still committing your way. You're still tasting Yahweh's word. And then what is the goodness you will see? He will act, right? So if you want Yahweh to move in your life, and if you want your prayers to be answered, what should you do? Commit your way to Yahweh and trust in Him, right? So let our prayers be what Yahweh desires, right? Simple, but if we don't obey this, then even the simple words we can't get. That's not good at all. Okay, this is I think we'll still get this next one. Okay, next one. Deuteronomy 5, verse 16. Honor your father and your mother as Yahweh your Elohim commanded you, that your days may be long and that it may go well with you in the land that Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. What is the tasting of Yahweh's word? Honor your father and your mother as Yahweh your Elohim commanded you. So if I'm honoring my father and mother the way that I feel I should honor them, am I tasting Yahweh's word? No, I should honor them as what? As Yahweh commanded you, right? So you should honor your father and your mother as Yahweh commanded you. And if you do that, what is the goodness of Yahweh you will see? Say it again. Just read it. Yes, that your days may be long and that it may go well with you in the land that Yahweh your El is giving you. The goodness of Yahweh happens to those who taste His word. Okay, let's see how wise you guys are. Next one. You, that is in reference to Yahweh, keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he's trusting you. What is the tasting of Yahweh's word? A mind that is stayed on Yahweh and trusting in Yahweh. That is the tasting of Yahweh's word. And what is the goodness of Yahweh you will see? Yahweh will keep him in perfect peace. Okay, so if you're a warrior, if you're somebody who's always worried and what is the goodness of Yahweh that you're not tasting?
Peace of mind.
You're not keeping your mind stayed on Yahweh. So I hear believers, worrying all the time and complaining, and this is why I'm saying like this. Some of these verses we know, but we don't do them, and therefore we don't see the goodness of Yahweh. So once again, what is the tasting of Yahweh's word? Keeping your mind stayed on Yahweh and trusting in Him. So, what should I do when I lose my job? What should I do when the wrong person I feel gets elected? What should I feel when I get a lot of money from somewhere else that I don't know? Keep your mind. I mean, are we going to disobey this verse when we get a lot of money? Keep your mind stayed on Yahweh and trust in Him, right? So I know it's very, very simple, but it's because we don't do these things, and so we are worrying all the time. Something bad happens, and then. All right, next one. Proverbs 10:1. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is a sorrow to his mother. Okay. What is the tasting of Yahweh's word? You can shout it out. Being a wise child, right? Being a wise child is tasting Yahweh's word. And how do you get wisdom? You ask. You ask Yahweh, and you can read His word. You become a wise. And what is the goodness of Yahweh you will see? You'll be a glad. Your parents will be glad. They will be happy. Right? That's the goodness of Yahweh that we see. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is a sorrow to his mother. So again, what is the tasting of Yahweh's word?
Be wise.
Be wise, right? In Yahweh, Yahweh's way of being wise. And what is the goodness of Yahweh you will see? Glad parents, a glad father, right? Okay, here's the last one. Galatians 5:16. This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. What is the tasting of Yahweh's word? And what is the goodness of Yahweh you will see? You will not fulfill the lust of. So, once again, what is the tasting of Yahweh's word? And what is the goodness of Yahweh you will see? Okay, so I hope we understand this, because it's very simple, but people want to not fulfill the lust of the flesh, but they don't want to walk in the Spirit. You have to taste to see Yahweh's goodness. Okay, if you want to see what Yahweh does, you have to taste His word. So this sermon was very simple, but I hope we get it. Simple, but I hope we get it. And I really do hope we get it. You have to taste, and then what? See that Yahweh is good. Can you see Yahweh's goodness, His rich goodness, without tasting His word? No. You have to taste and then see that Yahweh is good. May Yahweh bless you all.